All right. Good afternoon. Let's come to order and go on the record. I am Commissioner Tanola D. Brown Bland with the North Carolina Utilities Commission, presiding commissioner for this hearing. With me this afternoon are Chair Charlotte A. Mitchell and Commissioners Lyons Gray, Daniel G. Clodfelter, Kimberly W. Duffley, Jeffrey A. Hughes, and Floyd B. McKissick Jr. I now call for hearing docket number E2, sub 1273, in the matter of application of Duke Energy Progress LLC's annual review for approval of demand-side management and energy efficiency cost recovery rider pursuant to GS 62-133.9 and Commission Rule R8-69. GS 62-133.9 establishes the procedure for cost recovery of demand-side management, hereafter DSM, and energy efficiency, hereafter EE, expenditures. GS 62-133.9D provides for an annual DSM EE rider for electric public utilities to recover all reasonable and prudent costs incurred and appropriate incentives for adoption and implementation of new DSM and EE measures. On June 15, 2021, Duke Energy Progress LLC, hereafter DEP or applicant, filed its application for approval of the DSM and EE cost recovery rider pursuant to GS 62-133.9, along with the direct testimony and exhibits of Robert P. Evans and Shannon R. Lisbarger in support of the application. On July 7, 2021, the Commission issued an order scheduling hearing, requiring filing of testimony, establishing discovery guidelines, and requiring public notice. The order scheduled the hearing in this docket for today, Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, at 10 a.m., following the hearing in DEP's annual fuel charge adjustment proceeding. Based on timely petitions to intervene in this docket, the following parties were allowed to intervene by order of the Commission: North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, NCSEA, Carolina Utility Customers Association, Inc., CUCA, Carolina Industrial Group for Fair Utility Rates 2, SIGFR 2, and jointly the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, the North Carolina Justice Center, and the North Carolina Housing Coalition, hereafter the joint interveners. The intervention and participation of the public staff is recognized pursuant to GS 62-15D and Commission Rule R1-19E. On August the 11th, 2021, DEP filed the supplemental direct testimony of Robert P. Evans. On August 26, 2020, the public staff filed the testimony exhibits of Michael C. Manis and David M. Williamson. Also on the same date, the joint interveners filed the testimony and exhibits of Forrest Bradley Wright. On August 31st, 2021, the chair of the commission issued an order scheduling remote hearings, noting that the public hearing portion of this proceeding and the other annual rider proceedings would be held as initially scheduled and noticed at 10 a.m. in the commission hearing room, but that the expert witness hearing in this docket would be held remotely by the WebEx platform following the expert witness hearing, the company's fuel adjustment proceeding. Scheduled to begin at 10:30 a.m. The order required all parties to file a consent to remote hearings, which all parties to this proceeding have done. On September 16, 2021, DEP filed the rebuttal testimony and exhibits of Robert P. Evans and Linda Slayer Schaefer. On September 17, 2021, DEP and the public staff filed a joint motion to excuse certain witnesses from the expert hearing, and DEP filed a list of potential redirect exhibits. Also on September 17th, the commission issued an order changing the time for the expert witness hearing in DEP's annual rider proceedings, which include this proceeding, and therefore this proceeding is set for 1:30 p.m., which is the time that we all gathered here. On September 20th, 2021, presiding commissioner granted the movement's motion to excuse DEP witness Shannon R. Lisbarger and public staff witness Michael C. Manis, and provided that the excused witnesses' testimony and exhibits would be received into evidence at this hearing. On September 20th, 2021, DEP filed affidavits of publication of public notice in compliance with the Commission's order. In compliance with the requirement of Chapter 163A of the State Government Ethics Act, I remind the members of the Commission of our responsibility to avoid conflicts of interest, and I inquire at this time whether any member has any known conflict of interest with respect to the matter before us at this time. The record will reflect that no conflicts have been identified. I now call for appearances of counsel, beginning with the applicant.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Kendrick Fentress. I'm appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Progress.
All right, glad you could finally get here, Ms. Fentress.
Me too.
All right, I'll move to the interveners, the joint interveners.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Brown Bland. This is Terrell Moore appearing on behalf of the North Carolina Justice Center, the North Carolina Housing Coalition, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. I'm joined today by David Neal as well.
All right, welcome, Mr. Moore and Mr. Neal. Mr. Moore, you were a little bit choppy on the audio, so just watch that for me. All right, and Sigfer.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioner Brown Bland. This is Christina Cross appearing for Sigfer 2.
Good afternoon. And the NCSEA. NCSEA not in attendance. CUCA.
Good afternoon, Craig Shower, appearing on behalf of CUCA.
Thank you, Mr. Shower. And public staff.
Good afternoon. This is Nadia Lure with the public staff appearing on behalf of the using and consuming public.
All right. Is there anyone else needing to make an appearance? I see for the record that the Commission was informed that NCSEA could not be present today due to a conflict. All right. Are there any preliminary matters that need to be addressed prior to the beginning of the hearing?
Commissioner Brown Bland.
Yes, who's speaking?
Ms. Fentress, if you could lower the blinds behind you, we might be able to see your face better.
Thank you. We'll take care of that.
Great.
Is that better?
Very much. Thank you. Thank you for that, Commissioner Kleinfelter. All right. There being no preliminary matters, we will go ahead in the cases with the applicant.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown Bland. We would like to begin by calling Bob Evans to the stand.
I'm going to try to move this computer away so we get both of us into the picture. Is that?
We see you both. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Evans to the stand for his direct testimony.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fentress.
Call him and Ms. Schaefer for rebuttal.
All right. Mr. Evans, would you do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Ms. Fentress.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, can you state your name and business address for the record, please?
My name is Robert P. Evans, and my business address is 410 South Wilmington Street in Raleigh, North Carolina, 27601.
And Mr. Evans, did you cause to be pre-filed? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you state your position at Duke Energy?
Sure, I'm employed by Duke Energy Corporation as Senior Manager, Strategy and Collaboration in the Carolinas in its Integrated Grid Strategy and Solutions Group.
Thank you. And Mr. Evans, did you cause to be filed in this case on June 15th, 2021, direct testimony of 27 pages and exhibits 1 through 12 and A through D?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Evans, did you also cause to be pre-filed on August 11th, 2021, supplemental testimony of 3 pages and supplemental exhibit E?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed supplemental testimony?
No change.
And if I were to ask you the same questions as written in your pre-filed direct testimony today from the stand, would your answers be the same?
Yes, it would be.
And if I were to ask you the same questions in your pre-filed direct testimony today, would your answers be the same?
They would be the same.
Madam Chair, I would ask that Mr. Evans' pre-filed direct and supplemental testimony and exhibits be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
All right, that motion will be allowed, and Mr. Evans' direct pre-filed and supplemental direct pre-filed testimonies will be received into the record as if given orally from the witness stand. And the exhibits will be marked as they were identified when pre-filed, or identified as they were marked when pre-filed.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, do you have a summary of your direct and supplemental testimonies?
Yes.
Can you please present your summaries?
Yes. My direct testimony supports DEP's application for approval for its energy efficiency and demand side management cost recovery rider and experience modification factor EMF for 2022, which encompasses the currently effective cost recovery and incentive mechanism and portfolio of programs. In particular, my testimony discusses items the Commission directed the company to address, an overview of the Commission's filing requirements, a synopsis of the programs included in this filing, a discussion of program results, and an explanation of how these results have affected the DSF-EE rate calculations, information on the evaluation, measurement, and verification of EM&V activities, an overview of the calculation of the portfolio performance incentive, the PBI. I discussed actions the Commission directed the company to take in the last rider proceeding, which includes leveraging collaborative to include EM&V, or discuss EM&V and discuss program design issues, as well as appropriate way to reflect full avoided capacity of EE programs. The collaborative suggests several ideas for expanding or modifying DEP's current programs to assist low-income households. And when the company presented the proposed methodology to calculate the reserve margin adjustment factor, the RMAF, to reflect the full avoided capacity, no members objected. DEP is proposing to apply 11.429% RMAF to capacity savings associated with EE programs to be applied to vintage 2022. My testimony includes a comprehensive list of DSM and EE programs in the company's current portfolio. During vintage 2020, DEP's DSM EE programs delivered almost 355 million kilowatt hours of energy savings and over 314 megawatts of capacity savings, which produced a net present value of avoided cost savings of close to $136 million. The approved cost recovery mechanism allows DEP to recover reasonable and prudent costs incurred for adopting and implementing DSM and EE measures, recover net lost revenues incurred for up to 36 months of the measure's life for DSM and EE programs, and earn a PPI based on sharing of percentage of net savings achieved on an annual basis. Prior to 2022, the shared savings percentage is 11.5%, and starting in 2022, the percentage will be lowered to 10.6%. Updates to underlying assumptions that materially impact vintage 2022 portfolio projections are related to EM&V results and changes in avoided cost. Although 3 programs do not pass the TRC threshold of 1.0 and the Energy Wiser business program is being placed in a maintenance mode, DEP's portfolio of programs continue to be project cost effectiveness. The purpose of my supplemental testimony is to provide an exhibit that was inadvertently left out of the original filing, an AMI report for the Energy Wise Home Program for summer of 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Evans is available for cross-examination on his direct and supplemental testimony.
Ms. Fentress, I did have a question related to the identification of the exhibits in the filing. The supplemental attachment to the supplemental testimony was identified as an exhibit, I believe, but the prior convention was by appendix. Should that be in Appendix E?
It is labeled as Evans Supplemental Exhibit E when we filed it.
Correct. And then in the direct testimony, the EMV reports were appendices, I believe. I just want to, if it does not matter, we'll leave it as marked.
It does not matter. I completely understand.
Okay.
We can remark this Evans Supplemental Appendix E, of course.
All right. Just for consistency, let's
Certainly.
do that. So
Certainly.
the exhibit or attachment to the supplemental direct testimony will be identified as Appendix E. All right. The witness is available for cross, and unless you have all agreed on an order, which no one informed me, I will start with the joint interveners. Do you have cross for this witness?
No questions.
Sigfer, do you have cross for this witness?
No, Commissioner Brown Bland, thank you.
CUCA, Mr. Schauer? No.
No questions.
Thank you. And the public staff?
No questions.
All right. Well, the commission has some questions, and before I check with my colleagues, our staff has provided us some questions that they would like to receive answers to, so I will begin with those. Mr. Evans, the commission submitted a list of post-hearing questions in the DEP Rider case pertaining to the way in which the list of Find It Duke contractors were created. Does DEP use substantially the same procedures, or is there any significant differences there?
No, Commissioner, they are basically the same. And I brought up Find It Duke as a part of my rebuttal testimony as well in the proceeding.
Okay, and is there any significant overlap between those FID contractors for the two companies?
As far as the contractors themselves, I cannot tell you if they overlap or not, Commissioner. I do not know.
All right, but you would say the guidelines for approving the contractors, the way the DEP identifies and recruits the contractors, are similar, or
Yes, ma'am. They certainly are. Yes, Commissioner.
thank you. And what efforts does DEP make to identify and recruit historically disadvantaged businesses for participation in FID? And how many historically disadvantaged businesses are currently participating, if you know?
Commissioner, I do not know the answer. I do know that we are now reaching out to our supplier diversity channels in order to actively recruit historically disadvantaged businesses to take a part to be able to partake or work in the Find It Duke program.
Can you provide DEP's data on the number of historically disadvantaged businesses participating that are female-owned businesses. In other words, provide us a breakdown, the female-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and any other subcategories describing the nature and the ownership of such businesses.
The Commissioner, if that information is available, it will certainly be reported.
All right. I think we would ask if it is available, reasonably available, that you provide it to us in a late filed exhibit.
Yes, Commissioner.
What is the total number of businesses that currently participate in the Find It Duke? And by businesses, I mean contractors.
I can't, I do not know that number, Commissioner. I would be glad to provide that information to you in a separate follow-up exhibit.
How does DEP determine the amount or amounts of the fees that the contractors pay to participate in the program?
They are based on market conditions.
All right. Are they paid based on the number of referrals or the number?
Yes,
or the number
they
of
are.
referrals
They are based on the number of referrals. Yes, Commissioner.
separate and apart from? So it's the larger number of total referrals, or is it the referrals that lead to work, or some other basis?
It's the number of referrals based on the best of my knowledge. It is on the number of referrals.
What steps does the company take to ensure that participating contractors are using FID to obtain energy efficiency improvements to offer energy efficiency improvements to ratepayers, as opposed to using it to obtain general home improvement work such as plumbing or wiring repairs?
The program, when it became, when it started, was exclusively for DSM and EE related measures, primarily EE related measures, however. The growth into places like solar and tree trimming was based on customer request. And so, no, our primary focus is on DSM and EE related items.
So the question is getting at, is there any way that that you monitor what the contractors are doing to make sure that they are using it for energy efficiency improvement?
Commissioner, I am unaware of any monitoring efforts of that type. I wish I could tell you, but I frankly, I cannot.
Do you know if the company has data on how many energy efficient initiatives are installed due to the program's referrals?
Yes, we have that information. We provided similar information to the commission in the DEC case, and we can do the same with the DEP case.
All right, we would appreciate that. If you know, and it may be that you need time, I appreciate that, but if you know or can give us some insight, given the order in the DEC docket, E7 sub 1249, do you have initial thoughts for how DEP would propose to separate out the cost and revenues for the program if we came to a similar conclusion in this docket?
We have thought through it a couple of different ways. However, we will be working with the public staff toward a mutually agreed manner in which to make those allocations, Commissioner.
All right. Can you provide a breakdown of referrals between FID requests by DEP customers for energy efficient work?
Yes, Commissioner.
And can you do the same thing for referrals that result in work done by FID contractors and level of fees paid to FID?
I can make certain that we supply you with that information as an after hearing exhibit.
All right. In 2020, What was DEP's total cost of operating the FID program?
I do not have that information for DEP, Commissioner. I'll be glad to provide that information to you again in a
Right.
post.
And if you can, what are the actual year-to-date and expected full-year costs for 2021? Was there anything unusual about either of the year, 2020 or 2021?
We can supply that information as well.
All right. Do you have any knowledge about whether there was something unusual about either year?
I do know in the DEP case that COVID did impact the revenues and in a negative fashion, unfortunately.
All right. And so
I'm not aware of it.
So that previous question I just asked was about the cost, and you anticipated I was going to ask the same question pertaining to the revenues. What are the actual year-to-date and expected full-year revenues for 2021?
I will provide that to you as well, Commissioner. I'm sorry to have jumped the gun.
No, that was good. You can anticipate. Thank you. Another question. Ms. Evans, in your direct testimony, you testified to a reduction in the DSDR allocation ratios. And just for my understanding, is that was that reduction a result of more equipment being charged to non-DSDR equipment, or is it in the other direction?
Commissioner, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will look at my testimony and I have got that information available. I apologize for thumbing through these.
That is fine. I apologize. I had to do the same, and I apologize for not citing you to a page. It is probably a little after page 10, I would say. I don't have it.
Page 11, I think. It's on page 11.
Okay, on page 11. Okay, those percentages actually were reduced, those allocation factors, in both cases on capacitors and on transformers, regulators.
Correct. And I'm just asking because I don't follow whether the reduction is because there's more being charged to non-DSDR. Is that the direction that the change?
Yes, that is the direction.
So there's more to non-DSDR.
But it was not a significant change, Commissioner. And as I've seen in the past, it could go both directions. However, as DSDR changes, it may change as well in a different manner or more significant jumps or increases or in decrements.
All right, thank you. So are there other questions from the commissioners? Any commissioners have a question?
Commissioner Brown-Bland, I guess there were a few additional questions along
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
on the same line. And I was wondering if you could tell me what criteria does DEP apply to determine that a previously qualified contractor is no longer qualified to participate in the Find It Do program?
I cannot tell you that, Commissioner. We will be glad to provide that information to you, Howard.
Okay. And in 2020, do you know what the average dollar value was of work performed by historically disadvantaged businesses in the Find It Do program?
I cannot say that we know that information, Commissioner.
But you can
will-
seek to find it?
Yes. If it is available, you'll be notified under either set of circumstances, either if it's available or not available.
Okay, all right. And if you could do the same for average dollar value of work performed by contractors that were not historically disadvantaged businesses, that would be helpful as well.
Certainly, if that information is available, we will certainly provide it to the commission.
And in 2020, what was DEP's total cost for operating the Find It Duke program?
That information will have to be provided as a post-hearing exhibit, Commissioner.
Okay,
Of that at this point in time.
sure. And lastly, if you could also, just identify in 2020 what the total revenue received from Find It Duke was, as compared and contrasted to the operating costs, and that would be excellent. If you could submit that, I guess as a late file exhibit, that would be excellent. That would be
Yes,
it, Commissioner Brown-Bland. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other commissioners have questions of witness Evans? Not seeing any. One more witness Evans for you. And this goes back to Find It Duke. Do you know how the referrals are made? That is, I'm trying to determine if the referrals are made one service at a time. And so if a customer wanted 2 to 3 different services, they would come back in and there would be 2 more referrals. Or could one single customer have a joint referral at one time? Do you know?
I'd have to provide that as a post-hearing information, Commissioner.
All right.
I apologize.
If you have the answer or able to obtain it, we just appreciate knowing that. That's all the questions from the commissioners. Are there questions on commissioners' questions? I'm not hearing or seeing that anyone has any questions. So, Mr. Evans, you may step down at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, this would this be the appropriate time to move witness Listberger's direct testimony and exhibits into the record? I wasn't, in an abundance of caution, I'm prepared to do so.
Yes, it would be, but let's get Mr. Evans' exhibits in.
Oh, yes, I would move Mr. Exhibits.
It would be exhibits 1 through 12.
And appendices A through D and supplemental appendix E, move it into the record as
Very well, that motion is granted and those exhibits are received into evidence. Exhibits and appendices. And now?
and then I would also request to move witness Listerberger's direct testimony and exhibits pre-filed at the commission on June 15th, 2021 into the record and ask that it be admitted into evidence as if she had given it orally from the stand.
And that motion is allowed as well. And the
Thank you.
testimony is received as if given orally from the witness stand. And the exhibits are received and marked as they identified as they were marked when pre-filed.
Thank you.
All right. Does that conclude?
That is the
Commissioner Chief?
company's direct case. Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. All right, now we will turn to the interveners.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown-Bland. Joint interveners, call first Bradley Wright to the stand.
Right. Mr. Wright, let me see. Oh, there you are. Took me a minute to find you. All right, Mr. Wright, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Shower? Or Mr. Moore, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Please state your name and business address for the record.
I'm Forrest Bradley Wright, Business address is 3804 Middlebrook Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee 37921.
Mr. Bradley Wright, on September 9th, 2021, did you cause to be pre-filed direct testimony in this docket consisting of 39 pages as well as 11 exhibits?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed testimony?
No corrections.
If the questions put to you in your direct testimony were asked at the hearing today, would your answers be the same?
They would.
Were the exhibits to your testimony prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes, they were.
Commissioner Brown-Bland, I would move to have Mr. Bradley Wright's testimony and exhibits entered into the record as though given orally from the stand, and to have his exhibits attached to his testimony identified as pre-marked.
All right, without objection, that motion is allowed, and the testimony of witness Bradley Wright will be received into evidence as if given orally from the witness stand. The 11 exhibits are identified as they were marked when pre-filed.
Mr. Bradley Wright, did you prepare a summary of your testimony?
Yes, I did.
Would you please read your summary to the commission?
Indeed. Commissioner Brown-Bland, fellow commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Forrest Bradley Wright. I am the Energy Efficiency Director for the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and I'm appearing on behalf of the North Carolina Justice Center, the North Carolina Housing Coalition, and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Appreciate the opportunity to testify today. In 2020, Duke Energy Progress's efficiency savings declined by 12.2%, and the company once again fell short of the 1% annual savings target that it agreed to in the Duke and Progress Energy merger. Some of this most recent decline can be explained by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on delivery of in-home efficiency services. But DEP still lags considerably behind its neighboring operating company, Duke Energy Carolinas, which is also troubling given the lower levels of investment the DEP has directed towards its low-income energy efficiency programs. My testimony makes several suggestions to ensure that these concerning trends are reversed. Unfortunately, Duke Energy Progress's forecast for efficiency savings in 2022 once again falls short of its sister company, Duke Energy Carolinas, and the 1% savings target. Many collaborative members have made clear that the 1% savings target is important to their participation. To that end, collaborative members have contributed considerable amounts of time and submitted numerous program proposals to help Duke increase efficiency savings. But as my testimony details, there has been little visible action toward implementing those recommendations, and Duke has yet to submit a collaborative recommended program application to the Commission for approval. In the past year, the North Carolina Utilities Commission has approved a switch to the utility cost test and authorized a $500,000 performance bonus for Duke Energy Progress reaching 1% annual savings, which should both aid and induce the company to deliver higher efficiency savings. Yet Duke's savings forecast does not reflect new savings opportunities from use of the utility cost test, and the company does not appear to have a plan for reaching 1% annual savings in 2022. In fact, the company claims not to have even calculated what it would take to reach that mark. Meanwhile, Duke Energy Carolinas and nearly half of the nation's largest utilities have exceeded 1% annual savings, suggesting this is an achievable goal, but it is one Duke Energy Progress is unlikely to reach if it doesn't have a plan to do so. Thus, I urge the Commission to require DEP to develop and submit such a plan, and urge the company to renew its efforts to work with members of the collaborative to develop such a plan for implementation. My testimony next addresses DEP's low-income energy efficiency programs. I note that progress has been made on this issue over the last several years. Sadly and inexplicably, however, savings and spending on DEP's low-income programs have trailed far behind those at DEC. My testimony encourages the Commission to direct DEP to proportionately increase its low-income efficiency program budgets up to DEC levels, which would be approximately $5.4 million annually, and to work with the collaborative and draw insight from its sister company to develop offerings that increase total savings and provide more meaningful bill reductions for individual low-income customers. I ask that the Commission consider providing more explicit direction in its order in this proceeding, such as deliverables and timelines, like those it has ordered for the Low-Income Affordability Collaborative and Rate Design Collaborative. Doing so should lead to greater progress on these important issues. Finally, my testimony discusses the links between this proceeding and the decarbonization targets included in the North Carolina Clean Energy Plan. As Duke Energy's 2020 climate report noted, demand-side management and efficiency are some of the most effective means of carbon reduction. Nevertheless, to my knowledge, the company has never quantified and reported the carbon reduction impact of its DSM and efficiency portfolio. My testimony argues that these annual recovery riding proceedings can and should be a place to ensure that DEP's DSM and efficiency efforts are aligned with the state's goals in the Clean Energy Plan and the company's own carbon reduction goals. The Commission should direct DEP to track and report carbon reductions from its DSM and efficiency efforts. Doing so would provide the Commission and the public with valuable insight into the link between investment in DSM and efficiency programs and decarbonization of our electric system. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you today. This concludes my summary.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley Wright is available for cross-examination and commission questions.
All right, is there cross-examination for this witness, beginning with the company, the applicant?
No cross, thank you.
Right. Sigford,
No question, thank you.
CUCA,
Questions?
and the public staff.
No questions.
All right. Are there questions from the commissioners? I'm not seeing any. So, Mr. Bradley Wright, you get off light today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Mr. Moore,
Yes, at this time, I would like to move Mr. Bradley Wright's exhibits 1 through 11 into evidence as marked.
all right, without objection, they will be received into evidence. Mr. Bradley Wright, you are free to, you're excused. All right, we are proceeding along to the public staff.
Thank you. The public staff now calls David Williamson to the stand.
Here you are. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Ms. Lure.
Mr. Williamson, would you please state your name, business address, and position for the record?
My name is David Williamson, and I'm an engineer with the Public Staff's Energy Division, and my address is 430 North Salisbury Street, Raleigh, North Carolina.
And on September 9th, 2021, did you prepare and cause to be filed testimony consisting of 24 pages, an appendix, and 2 exhibits?
That's correct.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your testimony, appendix, or exhibits?
No, I do not.
And if you were asked the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And we would request that Mr. Williamson's testimony be admitted into evidence as if given orally from the witness stand, and that his exhibits be marked.
All right, without objections, Mr. Williamson's testimony will be received into evidence and treated as if given orally from the witness stand, and his exhibits will be identified as they were marked when pre-filed, as well as the appendix.
Thank you. Mr. Williamson, would you please give your summary?
Yes. My testimony addresses a number of topics, including a review of the performance and cost effectiveness of Duke Energy Progress's portfolio of DSM and EE programs, potential concerns with the portfolio going forward, and a review of the company's EM&V reports filed in this proceeding. I reviewed Duke Energy Progress's portfolio of approved DSM EE programs. Each of these approved programs is eligible for cost recovery pursuant to the Commission's rules and the cost recovery mechanism approved in docket number E2 sub 931 as revised in 2017 DSME Rider proceeding, docket number E2 sub 1145, and further revised on October 20th, 2020. My testimony highlights the metrics used to evaluate cost effectiveness in the annual rider proceedings. I review cost effectiveness trends to develop an expectation of each program's performance, costs, and measure life benefits in the upcoming rate period, as well as its ongoing cost effectiveness. I rely on these trends as illustrated in my exhibits to develop my recommendations concerning whether a program should be continued, modified, or terminated. Several factors such as changes in participation, standards, or avoided costs also impact cost effectiveness. My testimony also provides a number of recommendations to the Commission. First, I recommend that the Commission accept the method proposed by the company for calculating the reserve margin adjustment factor and its use in the calculation of avoided capacity benefits for EE measures for future vintages. Second, I recommend that the company work with the public staff to draft language to incorporate the use of the reserve margin adjustment factor in its cost recovery mechanism. And last, with regard to the evaluation, measurement, and verification reports filed by the company in previous DSME riders, I believe the company has complied with the public staff's earlier recommendations concerning EM&V as ordered by the Commission. Public staff generally agrees with the findings of the EM&V reports filed in this proceeding and the EM&V reports filed as Evans Exhibits A through D and Evans Supplemental Exhibit E should be considered complete for purposes of this proceeding. In addition to these recommendations, I also noted two concerns with regard to DEP's DSME portfolio. Those were changes to the company's referral channel for its residential Smart Saver EE program and the recovery of DSDR related costs in the company's DSME rider. This concludes my summary.
The witness is available for cross-examination.
All right, is there cross-examination for this witness? Starting with the company.
No cross, thank you.
All right, the joint interveners.
No questions, thank you.
Sigfer,
No questions, thank you.
CUCA.
No questions, thank you.
All right, are there questions from the Commission? I don't think the commissioners want Mr. Williamson to get off so lightly. I just have one question for you, Mr. Williamson. Witness Evans on page 10 of his direct, he indicated there that the PAF performance adjustment factor is intended to represent an estimated equivalent forced outage rate. Does the public staff now agree with that characterization?
Could you repeat where it was in his direct testimony again?
It is page 10, and I think it's lines 12 to 13.
Just trying to get it pulled up here.
If you know or have an opinion.
Looking over it now, just how it's written, I believe that is a correct representation.
All right. Is there any other commissioner have a question? Seeing none, are there questions on Commission's question? I'm hearing no one come forward, so Ms. Lure.
At this time, I would request that Mr. Williamson's Appendix A and Exhibits 1 and 2 be entered into evidence.
Without objection, that motion is allowed.
And if now is the appropriate time, I would also request that the testimony and appendices of Public Staff Witness Manus, which were pre-filed on September 9th, 2021, be moved into the record and entered into evidence as if given orally from the stand.
All right, I'm going to excuse Mr. Williamson from the stand, and that motion made by Ms. Allure to receive the testimony of witness Manus will be allowed, and his testimony is received as if given orally from the witness stand, and his appendices are received and identified as they were marked when pre-filed. All right. Anything further from the public staff?
No, thank you.
Right. Then we are now back to rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would recall Mr. Evans and also call Ms. Schaefer to the stand.
All right. Ms. Fentress, I think you and Mr. Evans need to
Oh, yes, so sorry.
move around. I see Ms. Schaefer. Mr. Evans, you've already affirmed, made affirmations, and Ms. Schaefer, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Okay.
All right, Ms. Fentress, there, you're witnesses.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, since you've already been introduced, I will start with you and move to Ms. Schaefer. Mr. Evans, did you cause to be pre-filed in this case on September 16th, 2021, rebuttal testimony of 10 pages and 1 exhibit?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
Oh, no, I do not.
And if I were to ask you the same questions as written in your rebuttal testimony today from the stand, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would be.
Thank you. I'll move to Ms. Schaefer. Ms. Schaefer, could you please state your full name and business address for the record?
My name is Linda Slayer Schaefer. I work at 400 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202.
And Ms. Schaefer, what is your position at Duke Energy?
I'm a Senior Strategy and Collaboration Manager for the Carolinas and the Portfolio Strategy and Support Group.
And Ms. Schaefer, did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket on September 16th, 2021, rebuttal testimony of 12 pages?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
No, I do not.
And if I were to ask you the same questions as written in your rebuttal testimony today from the stand, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would ask that Mr. Evans and Ms. Schaefer's pre-filed rebuttal testimony and exhibit be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Commissioner, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you. Ms. Fentress, that motion will be allowed, and the testimony of the rebuttal testimony of witnesses Evans and Schaefer will be received into evidence as if given orally from the stand, and the exhibit of the rebuttal exhibit of witness Evans will be identified as it was marked when pre-filed.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, I'll start with you. Do you have a summary of your rebuttal testimony?
Yes, I do.
Can you please give your summary?
The purpose of my rebuttal testimony is to respond to the testimony of Forrest Bradley Wright, filed on behalf of North Carolina Justice Center and the North Carolina Housing Coalition and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and to the testimony of Michael Manus, filed on behalf of the public staff. In response to witness Bradley Wright's comments about the 1% annual savings targets, I point out the target is an aspirational goal and not an express requirement of the South Carolina merger settlement agreement, which covered a multi-year period that ended in 2018. The company's attainment of this goal has been hampered by the lack of clarity of the merger settlement agreement on the impact of eligible non-residential customers who opt out of participating in the company's DSM and EE programs. Opt-out sales should be removed from the calculation savings goal since customers that have opted out are not eligible to save in the company's DSM EE programs. Next, I disagree with witness Bradley Wright's recommendation the company increases low-income efficiency program budgets to match those of DEC on a per residential basis or per residential customer basis. Increasing the budget will not necessarily increase participation or the associated savings in an EE program. Next, I disagree with witness Bradley Wright's position regarding the quantification of carbon savings associated with the DSM EE portfolio because there is no transparent or recognized impacts within the DSM EE mechanism associated explicitly with carbon savings. Such quantification is outside the scope of DEP's EE cost recovery filings at this time. Finally, I disagree with witness Bradley Wright's comments on the market potential study, or MPS. Although the MPS is used to inform program offerings, not a direct input into energy savings in the company's 2022 projection in this proceeding. Witness Bradley Wright's concern regarding the MPS and the impacts of utilizing TRC versus UCT for planning purposes is more appropriate in an integrated resource planning proceeding rather than in this annual rider proceeding. With respect to the recommendation of public staff witness manuals to refine the bind-and-dupe referral channel accounting, the company is working with the public staff to identify and quantify the applicable non-EE related referral costs and revenues so that they will be removed from the requested cost recovery proceeding in this proceeding. The company will also review and, if appropriate, discuss with the public staff the input to the impact of the commission's decision prior to the Duke Energy Carolinas LLC or company's next annual rider proceeding. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Schaefer, do you have a summary of your rebuttal testimony?
I do.
Can you please give your summary?
My rebuttal testimony responds to statements of Forrest Bradley Wright filed on behalf of the North Carolina Justice Center, the North Carolina Housing Coalition, and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, pertaining to the Energy Efficiency and Demand-Side Management Collaborative. Witness Bradley Wright asserted that the company has not acted on collaborative. Yes.
Just a minute. We're hearing some interference or feedback with your microphone, I believe, and I'm not sure what's causing it. I just want to be sure our court reporters are able to take down what you're saying. Madam Court Reporter, are you able to hear? All right. Chair Mitchell is there with you and is able to understand that you can't hear. All right, Ms. Sheffer, you may continue.
Okay. Witness Bradley Wright asserted that the company has not acted on collaborative suggestions appropriately or communicated savings projections in a way that would allow for meaningful participation from collaborative members. With respect to implementing collaborative suggestions, the company is eager to find new ways to encourage energy efficiency, but the process to develop ideas into cost-effective, scalable, commercially viable programs is complex. DEP must develop, implement, and administer programs that are not only cost-effective, but also comply with commission rules and orders. Witness Bradley Wright erroneously characterizes the company's deliberate nature in product development as a failure to act on suggestions of collaborative members. The company finds value in collaborative suggestions, even if the company is not able to implement a new program at this time. My testimony addresses the 7 collaborative recommendations that Witness Bradley Wright cites in his testimony. With respect to Witness Bradley Wright's recommendation to track savings that result from collaborative suggestions, I believe that attempting to track and assign credit for success is not only unnecessary, but also antithetical to the mission statement of the collaborative. Additionally, imposing arbitrary deadlines to speed up program development will likely undermine the company's ability to give each suggestion the amount of research and investigation it warrants. Additionally, witness Bradley Wright states that he was unaware of upcoming changes in savings projections for existing programs in 2022, which, in his opinion, implied that collaborative members were unable to comment on or contribute to the decision. The reality is that energy savings adjustments are the result of EM&V studies, each of which was presented to the collaborative in detail. For example, the EM&V study for the only program to have a reduction in savings, the multifamily program, was sent to the collaborative in July 2020 and reviewed in the 4-hour collaborative meeting 1 week later. Witness Bradley Wright received that study and participated in the meeting where it was discussed. This concludes the summary of my testimony.
The witnesses are available for cross-examination.
All right, is there cross-examination for these witnesses? None for the public staff. I see the joint interveners. None from the joint interveners. SIGFUR
No questions.
and CUCA.
No question from CUCA.
Thank you. Are there questions from the commissioners? All right, I see Commissioner Hughes.
Yes, I'm just curious, and this is a question for either of the witnesses, if they've participated in this debate about how to improve the 1% and the budgeting during the collaborative, if this conversation has been going on in the collaborative meetings as well.
I'll answer that. It has been going on in the collaborative. The collaborative has been focused on meeting that 1% threshold, not because it's a mandated target, but because it's as witness Bradley Wright stated in his testimony, it's a metric that is important to collaborative members. So we have been talking about the 1%, and in fact, witness Bradley Wright, who is an active and valuable member of our collaborative, is spearheading the subgroup or the working group that is developing the plan right now to meet that 1%. As far as the budgeting goes, we've discussed with the collaborative many times that the budget that we bring to the rider filing is used to set rates. So if we arbitrarily increase the budget as if agreeing to spend more money will do the trick, then what will actually happen, what's guaranteed to happen, is that our rate goes up. What's not guaranteed to happen is that our energy savings goes up. So we prefer to set our budgets rather conservatively, but we have no cap. And we've discussed with the collaborative many times. If we have more demand than we have budgeted for, we meet that demand, we serve those customers, and then our regulatory recovery mechanism allows for a true up in subsequent years. So we can handle it that way.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up question, have you discussed alternative or additional targets and metrics? I know we have some targets for low income, but has there been any discussion about modifying that 1% or having an additional or alternative performance target?
We have talked about that. That's part of the working group that witness Bradley Wright is spearheading. Because as you know, energy efficiency is only one part of demand side management. We also have demand response. And then we also have specific customer groups that we'd like to target, not just low income, but also small businesses. And so that is in discussion, and we're leaning on the expertise of witness Bradley Wright to help us with that.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions from the commission? I'm not seeing any. All right, are there questions on commission's questions? Ms. Fentress?
I do have one, a couple, Madam Chair. Ms. Schaefer, do you have in front of you what was what has been marked DEP, SACE, NCJC, NCHC redirect exhibit number 1. And I believe this was provided to the parties and the commission on Friday afternoon.
I do.
And can you tell us what the title of that exhibit is?
That is Energy Efficiency in the Southeast. It's the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy's annual report published in January this year.
And I believe Commissioner Hughes was asking you about DEP's efforts to meet the 1% savings target. Can you turn to page 6 of that exhibit?
Yes, ma'am. I'm there.
Can you describe for us how well DEP does in comparison with other Southeast utilities who are similarly situated with climate and geography with respect to meeting percentage of prior year retail sales and energy savings?
Gladly. So DEP is number 2 in the Southeast, as you can see from SACE's report, second only to DEC, but far ahead of not only the national average, but way ahead of number 3, Georgia Power. So DEP is performing very well. And although it's difficult to compare savings across utilities because each state and jurisdiction has its own regulatory constraints or just ways of calculating savings, I think that comparing the companies to their peer utilities in the Southeast is probably the most accurate or at least the most helpful benchmark. And you can see from SACE's report that DEP has done very well.
Thank you. When you were talking about states, just to follow up, if you turn to page 5 of that report, and let me know when you're there.
There.
Thank you. How does North Carolina stack up with respect to energy savings as a percentage of prior year's retail sales?
North Carolina outstrips its number 2, South Carolina, by quite a bit, 0.66% as opposed to South Carolina at 0.41%. And very close to the national average of 0.67, which, considering the climate that the Carolinas have, is quite an achievement.
Thank you. That is all I have for Ms. Schaefer. And Mr.
All right. Thank you. Joint interveners? Any questions on commission's questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Sigfer
No questions, thank you.
and CUCA.
No questions from CUCA. Thank you.
All right. So, Ms. Fentress.
Yes, with that, I would like to move DEP, SACE, NCJC, NCHC redirect exhibit number 1 into the record, please.
Without objection, that motion is allowed and the exhibit is received into evidence. Ms. Fentress, I don't recall that we brought the application in.
Oh, I would like to please move that into the record as well.
All right, without objection, the application will be received into the record. And the panel witnesses are excused. Is there anything else that pertains to the case that needs to be brought to the commission's attention at this time? If not, we go with the customary proposed orders and briefs are due 30 days from the publication of the transcript. All right, it'll be so ordered. And I believe, Ms. Fentress, you have a little bit of a list of late filed exhibits to bring.
We will get that to the commission very quickly.
All right, if there's nothing else to come before the commission at this time, no one needs to clear anything up that has transpired in our time together. then we will be adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
You hit, we restart.